Hey everybody, hope you had a great trading day. Stay to the end because we're going to go through the indexes as well. Now, Alta, you had really good earnings. You raised your 22 guidance, right? From 20, let's call it $20 to $21. Just make the math really simple. Guidance 955, okay, to now 975. So now you're going higher. Obviously, both of these are very good, roughly a 4% increase in guidance. So that's good. You beat by 70 cents on this quarter. Sales were 2.3 versus $2.2 billion. Stock is responding positively, up $10 after hours. Right now, we're just in that trading range. You can kind of see that 15-minute trading range we're always talking about. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click all notifications because what we go over here is extremely timely. You see that range right there? So that's pretty much your range for the night. You're just going to want to see how it acts. The filming of this, just like we did snow in the video yesterday or before the conference call, so things could change depending upon what they say. It's going to be very hard to change when you come out with fiscal 22 guidance and it's that good, quite frankly. The firm's down about 10% now. We were down about 15% earlier. If you take a look at that range, again, we can just see it real clear. That's why I always say watch the first 15 minutes. It gives you a range. You can kind of see where all the high frequency traders and algos are. It's very hard for people to move that fast, right? And then if you really want to break it down, just always look at a 1 minute chart and you can kind of see right off that 1 minute how fast you moved, right? So realistically, we know that this is algos and high frequency traders. It's not really that possible for non-computers to move a stock $7, $8, right? And you just can't move that fast. So we know what that is and we know what they're doing. They're trying to trigger so that people act, and that's what happens down here. You're trying to build, maybe make an H. It was a really bad quarter, quite frankly. This would get me a little concerned. Yes, you have the 65 cents miss, okay? Sales came in at 364 and they beat by 354. So you're making more money and you're losing more money. Okay, so you're making more on the revenue side, but your costs are going up. So I don't think that helped them. I also found this pretty confusing. So they're going to lower guidance on first quarter to 345 to 365 versus 386, but then they're going to raise guidance. So I can see why people are not really digging this or believing it. These numbers, they're just a little skewed. So I think that that's going to put a cloud on the stock. Now, if you wait for the conference call, maybe they have an explanation for that. Maybe they have an explanation for their cost structure. Maybe they have an explanation for why they're backloading fiscal 2023. That's very possible. At the time of recording this, I don't know that. I can just tell you that very clean. We just got to the 21 and then we just sold straight down. So this is something that I would just avoid. I don't think this should have come as any great shock after what happened to Peloton, and Affirm is still over 20% of their sales, if I'm correct. And you can just see what this did. Peloton had that news yesterday, which was really just a smoke screen to get people in, get other people out with the Amazon news. And then, you're down 20% today. So I think that kind of set people up for failure with Affirm, which is kind of, bothersome. Now, good earnings are being rewarded, as you can see tonight. So workday, and let's just show you where you were pre and post so you can understand this. You were up to about 162. You're up about 20 points or 14% on the day after hours. And these kinds of earnings are being rewarded. And you can kind of see how you're started to slope up, came down, kind of a wonky handle under that 21 day, but earnings were exceptional. And I think it's important to note after CRM, expectations for Workday were probably pretty low, not identical businesses, but nonetheless. So you look at this and say 83 cents versus 81 cents. So they beat expectations, sales beat, and then they reaffirmed guidance. So this is pretty much exactly what you want to see from a company right now. Okay, you want to see that reaffirmation of guidance, and the beat certainly did not help. Clean, clear, and concise is what you're looking for. So could this have a snow kind of day tomorrow? I think it could. Make sure you stay to the end because I do really want to go through the indexes and what to expect for tomorrow. But when you see things like this, yes, you need to pay attention to it. I think it's becoming increasingly clear to everybody that this market has turned. we're not going to see those bottoms unless something really drastic happens now. I think people need to kind of start wrapping their head around that. So that means that eventually you'll turn into a stock picker's market. It's going to start with good earnings. And they're going to be the companies that people are going to chase. So I like these kinds of names, and I would focus on these kinds of names. And you're seeing follow through across the board. I mean, here's Crowd, right? So everyone watched how Snow did, and then they got excited. Now they're looking for the next one. You can see how you're finally breaking through that DTL, downward trend line, as you did here. We can get rid of this one, and you can see where we're at. Please comment on these videos. It's why I get them out faster now, and that you're seeing them a little unedited, just so I can get the information out sooner to everybody. But this is what you're looking for. Everyone's going to be looking for the next one that's going to come out with earnings next. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, and no, they're not in the exact same space, but you start looking at stuff like this and go, okay, well, Snow crushed, Net crushed, right? And again, I understand they're not the same space. TTD crushed. So what space is working and what space is having a hard time? And even the space that's having a hard time, like NVIDIA, they're still benefiting. So that tells you where you're at. That's a tremendous amount of volume. And people will say it's short covering. Maybe it was. That chart looks extremely ugly. But these trades like Crowd, they don't look extremely ugly. They look perfect. Like this is what you want to see. Tighter and working your way up to that downward trend line and finally flipping. This is what works. Yes, you're going to go up. Yes, you're going to backfill. But this is what works. And that's really what you have to kind of focus on. So this was one we did in the newsletter. And if you don't get a copy of the newsletter, there's a link down below and you can get it for free. Now, if you see that line right here, okay, this was a really simple trade for us today in the trading room, like super simple. So, I mean, it was not overly complex at all, just off a very simple 1 minute chart. And you can see how the stock moved and how we acted. Now, how people acted after that is up to them, right? Everybody trades differently. But if you just even get rid of all the noise and you can just see, there was your low, testing it. You never really break it for a very long period of time. If you looked at this on a 15-minute bar, you never even closed below it. So it's really important to understand where you're at and those levels. And now you're into the gap. And depending upon what happens tomorrow, you could be at new highs and people could be wondering, why did they even sell it? And I think you're going to see more and more of that. It would be a really good time for us to cover the indexes. So, you have to understand when you're talking to I'm reading stuff, whether you're watching these videos or you're on social media and you're looking at Twitter or Instagram and people have an opinion, I think you should take the opinions and form your own opinions with them, right? That's the whole purpose of me doing this, so that people can kind of learn, right? Not kind of learn, actually learn. Also get ideas. But what you need to focus on is how many times were these bears trying to break us at 41.25? So many times. Did they break us? No. They flipped and we went higher. Now, if you start to learn how to use these indicators like RSI, I'll pop this in. Okay, we knew that this was what was going to happen. We were talking about it in the trading room for the past 3 days. This was what we thought was going to happen. This was our plan. So when I say we knew, this was our thesis. Like this was the last time we were down this low. And what happened? Curled up and we had a huge run. Here we are again. Okay, you're not in a breakaway market. You're not going to go straight up. So when you start to drop on RSIs on the hourly that are in 20, it's probably not realistic for you to stay there. But everyone's like a cat on a hot tin roof right now, so they just sell and panic. Well, that's what forms bear markets. Okay, that's how you get a bottom in a bear market. And you can see that pretty clearly right here. Did the same exact thing and ran for 2 months. People are expecting Powell to say something tomorrow that's going to be extremely negative. The cynic in me thinks that it's very interesting that he's having his meeting at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, the same exact day they're releasing PCE. PCE index is tied more to businesses and business information than consumer information. PPI last quarter, people will tell me they're not correlated. That's fine. PPI last quarter was negative 0.5%. I think there's a reason why that meeting is tomorrow. That's my personal opinion. I'm not alone in my personal opinion, just so you get this, okay? So the bond market agrees with me, and they are buying bonds ahead of PCE, ahead of Powell. If they thought Powell was going to come out and start talking about 75 basis points and more rate hikes, you wouldn't be buying bonds. You would not have had a 10 basis point sell-off in yield, hence buying bonds. You wouldn't have seen that. You wouldn't have seen people buying the long end of the bond today. Okay, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see people selling puts, right? That's what you saw today. Look where you're at. Okay, so for me, and looking at this, it's really important for us to put all these dots together and then come out and say, okay, now what do we do with that? You have to get through tomorrow. But once you're through tomorrow, you basically, all you did was work off overbought and just go to neutral. That's all you did on the NASDAQ. You just worked off that entire 2-month move. So, and that's how RSI, one of the ways to use RSI. I'll link that video, an educational video at the end of this. So watch IWM. I mean, it's a clear indication of what's going on. IWM leads coming out of recessions and out of bear markets, right? We all know this. So, it took 4 years for IWM to hit a high after 2000. It took 8 years for the SPY, and it took 16 for the NASDAQ. So this is what happens. And this is the kind of moves that you can see. Now, just keep that in mind. If you are interested in the trading room, there is a link right here. The trading room will be open for the next 5 days, and then we will close it down again for an undisclosed period of time. So the link will be right up here in the top right corner, and also link in description. Any questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a great day tomorrow and trade to win.